Hey guys, this is Matt for Creative. I just finished watching Succession. I think it is really the last episode was done extremely well. But one thing that's really key, and I think if you don't watch these little portions after the show, I think you should, is where the creators really talk about the decisions they make in the show. Usually it's about, maybe lighter things like how they filmed a scene, how they kind of prep for things, but this last one really summed up the show. And before I continue, there will be spoilers. This is a show that I found when it first aired, and I watched, I think, the first season or so. I put it away, and I finally got into it right before the beginning of this fourth season. And what a time to do it. So I was binge watching this entire show, and it was just like hitting me full force, where this show could have just gone on forever and just been like infighting with this family and other outside sources. And it just seemed like it was a never ending kind of just like who's going to win, who's going to be the head CEO, who's going to be this and that. And you could even see in this final season that although they said season 4 is going to be this last season, you could even see that they had like a storyline where Kendall, one of the brothers, and Roman, another one of the brothers, became like a co-CEO, temporary CEO, and it continued being an infighting. And this is kind of what should have clued me into how this ended a while ago, because with Shiv, their sister, there's always, if one of them won, it was always going to be them trying to one up and just like come out and just eventually, be at the top, and it would have just gone on forever. The reason why I talked about the kind of the wrap-ups of the episode is one of the creators said that Succession is a tragedy, and it's always been written as a tragedy. And I never thought of it like that. I thought of it as kind of like this intense, not thriller, but just like you're always trying to keep up with who's doing what and where, for what reason and why. And it was really, really interesting. I thought it was like a highbrow, like New York. We're here in New York as well, but kind of based in New York show, where this is probably what happens. I know it's based off of, or it's kind of the same as some real happenings on some TV network, so it's kind of like interesting to kind of do research and see, is it matching up to real life, or is it kind of its own thing? But it was just so interesting. To, I guess, spoilers be here, out of the 3 main characters, no one gets it, and it feels right. So this whole season has been about trying to stop the sale of ATN and other things, I believe, to a larger company, where they want to buy that influence and start using that and just make it their own. They first agreed to the deal, I believe, in season 3, and then season 4, they're like, no, we want this back. We want this to be either mine or the family's, and we just want to continue on. And again, like they had at the beginning of the season, that just means if one of them gets it, they're always going to be infighting for it, and there's always going to be something there. So this last episode was like a musical score. Very quiet, very calm at the beginning, and then it just picks up crescendos, and you can see so at the beginning, Shiv is kind of in partnership with the buying team to become the CEO once that is gone through, but then you find out that she's actually not going to be in place. She learns that information as well, and then she teams up with the other 2 brothers, Roman and Kendall, and they're going to block this. They're going to get the support. They do have the support, and they're going to block this. And you think, okay, all of this fighting, all of this, they're coming together. There is an extremely heartwarming moment where they finally choose, they say, Kendall, you've got this. He's the eldest brother. You've got this. You are the one who has the credentials to actually be the front of this company. And they give it to him. And they talk about this in the wrap-up too. But they have this extreme, like, it's one of my favorite parts, where everything has always been so cutthroat. You think that they finally backed a brother and they all are just like very comfortable with it, and they're at their mother's house. And it just like, it feels right. At that time also, you do see, I think the actor's name is Brian Cox. You see him in like a pre-recorded thing. Like, there's nothing like he comes back to life, but you see him in this pre-recorded thing, and it's a very warm moment with him and his, I guess, colleagues that he's like had this business with for such a long time. It's a very warm moment, and you think, this is going to have a happy ending. This is all warm. It's hitting you emotionally. They're giving you Brian Cox here at the very end. They're showing some warmth and personality, not like the brute that the real person is. But it was just like heartwarming, as a series finale should be. But then almost at the very end, it just goes to the point where Shiv has that final vote. It's 6-4, 6 and against the sale. And if she says no to the sale, then they retain it. Kendall becomes the leader of everything, and Roman and Shiv, they kind of get their pieces in that. But I think you see at that moment where it comes down to her. Second is going to be Roman. She's very intensely looking at what Roman says. And for a moment you think, is Roman going to be this kind of like stick in the mud? And is he going to mess something up? But he, not reluctantly, but he just mumbles, yeah, no, we're not, no sale. And Shiv, I wouldn't say, well, has like this kind of like almost panic attack where she has to get up. She leaves like the boardroom where everybody's voting. She goes to another, well, basically glass pane boardroom so everybody around you can see, but she just wants to be kind of away from things. And basically it comes out that she doesn't think that Kendall would be a good CEO. When Kendall's side is, this is what he was bred for. This is all he knows. This is what he has to do. And Roman, I guess his side is kind of like what they in reality are. He says that they're bullshit. And that kind of means, I think in their father's eyes, that's what they were. Like, it kind of comes out, who knows what you can believe. But at 7 years old, their father told Kendall that he was going to get it. And before he died, he said that it was going to go to Roman. Shiv has always been in play, kind of like throughout the series, but there's no real determined point where she was going to be the head. But it's kind of like they were all going to do it, but they could kind of tell that their father didn't want them to have it. It was just something where he had to pass it down, and maybe he was going to do it. Who knows what would have happened if he didn't pass away in like the third episode, which was insane. But this is like kind of like one of those things where it just catches you off guard. She votes no after a really physical, violent thing where Kendall was impassioned just to get this deal done. And it's like, they had it. They voted, they talked about it, they're all backing it. But then I think the perfect ending of the show is, maybe they call it a tragedy, but I really do think this show would have really been a tragedy if the deal had not gone through for another company to buy ATN, because it would just be history repeating itself. Kendall, a flawed human being, maybe even then becoming a worse and worse person, and then all infighting with Roman and Shiv forever. That would just be something that happens forever and ever and ever and ever again. And by her voting no, by the way, Tom becomes like the CEO head out of ATN through the sale. If you don't know who Tom is, that's Shiv's husband. And it's just Like who would have known that he would do it? But he's a kiss ass of a person, and people that kind of, they make those choices in the right way, it just kind of goes in their favor. But he does come out on top. But it's not like it's not like Kendall, Roman, and Shiv are left with nothing. They have the payout of the sale, an extreme amount of money, where now they can do kind of what they want. But I would say this is more freeing. It may be jarring, and it may honestly be Kendall's only way to really use everything that he's been bred for. Like, who knows what he's going to do now? Even the creators say Kendall may start his own company, but it's never going to be like this. And it's just very, like, it feels like this is the end of this story. There's always going to be other things that happen for these characters, but this is the end of Succession. Nobody won. Nobody who was a family member won. And again, I feel like that's closure, and I feel like if it's a real tragedy, you don't get closure. At least that's the way that I see things. Kendall is going to be heartbroken, but I feel like he's going to be able to recover, not to the peaks of what he was going to be, but you know, that's what it is. Shiv, on the other hand, is married to Tom, and at the very last scene, you can see them together. They've always had they've been fighting, they're almost divorced basically, but now her power is being next to now the CEO of the company. Roman, basically, you know, he was never really the one to take control of this company. He just liked being in the mix of things, I believe. You find him at a bar, not down in the dumps, but just like, you know, kind of like, yeah, this is what happens. You know, again, he has now tons of money and he can do what he wants, but you kind of get that feeling where he's never going to reach that peak of decision-making power. You know, he could have a startup company, he could have something else that is very meaningful, but just not as meaningful as this, because it's what we've all experienced here together. I think it's an extremely well done last episode. It gives you that warmth. It gives you that nostalgia with the videotape of the father. It gives you the tension. It gives you the crescendo, and then it gives you a twist that is not like it feels forced. It feels like it's what should happen, and it just happened 13 minutes ago. I think that this is a really, really great show. And I'm sad to see it go. I don't know if this is getting like a spin-off or something like that. Maybe all these shows are. But as a closure point for this story, it made sense that none of the children actually get, you know, that prize that we were looking for, because that makes it the end of this section of story for them. But yeah, guys, if you have any comments or questions, what did you think about Succession? Did you think it was the ending that was first? Did you think it was an appropriate ending? And also, did you guess what the ending would have been? My thought was, people were like, oh, what if it's Greg? You know, like, nah, it's never going to be Greg. That would be terrible if they made it that. And people were like, what if it's Tom? And I was like, no, it can't be Tom. It's just like he would never be able to push a deal through to make him the head of it. Turned out to be him. And I was like, it's got to be Kendall. But then that's just me thinking in, like, I would say a real sense, because this is a story. This is something that's supposed to kind of feel like it makes sense, not actually make sense. I think Kendall should have really gotten it, and I think it would have just made sense. He would have been a good, decent CEO. I don't think up to par with his father, who ruled with like an iron fist, but I really think that Kendall was the one to take over all of this. Unfortunately, Shiv doesn't have the background, and Roman is just like, he's basically, I would closely say he's kind of like me in his kind of personality and his temperament, just not somebody to be like the overarching person like this. There is one more thing that really related to me, where I've been kind of like on a good kick of things working out, me progressing in things on this channel and other things outside of this. And every once in a while, I think, what if I'm not as good as I think I am? And then I think, what if in reality I'm not as good as I think I am? Those are two different things. One being what I think, and one being the actual reality of stuff. And that's something that worries me sometimes, where I think that, am I as good as I think I am at what I do, in most general terms possible? Or what if I find out one day, I don't have any siblings, but in the same process that this happened, where Shiv is like, you wouldn't be a good CEO. And that's kind of like reality hitting Kendall, where he thinks he would not be a good CEO because a good CEO would have kind of known the steps to push everything through to make this deal happen and to talk to people in a way that they would actually, a good CEO would have made Shiv be solidly on their side. And it's just like, you have days like that. Everybody has days like that where they just don't know if what they're doing is enough. So it hit home for me. It's very interesting. I love this show. I'm glad I caught up and I was watching it in real time, because my friend was saying, oh, they wish that they could binge watch this show. But imagine if you binge watched season 4 and like, oh, random's like 3rd episode, the father dies, but then you just continue on and you finish it in like a day. It wouldn't be interesting. I don't think it's interesting. It's kind of like Stranger Things. You know about it for like a day, you talk about it, and that's it. This you've talked about for about 2.5 months. So I like the structure of it. I like that it's a weekly release, and I hope we get more some things like this. Game of Thrones and that type of stuff is good, but this is something that really sticks with me, and I really like it. But yeah, we've gone on long enough, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, put everything in the comment section below. Again, subscribe if you're not subscribed, because we can always, that always helps. You can find me on Instagram at m8b9. You can email me at matt8b9@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.